Hey everybody, it's Randy Ray, and this is The Literate Texan. Been away for a little while, but it's good to be back. I've got a video tonight that's actually a response video called The Bright Side of BookTube. And earlier tonight, Steve Donahue had mentioned a video to me by the Rekindled reader called The Dark Side of BookTube, which is a title I've heard for multiple other videos. And it's one of those formulaic titles that you learn marketing on the internet. And I know because I've been an internet marketer for years and years, it's how I make my living. And it was not a bad video, although I did come away from the video with the thought that if I watched this video, I wouldn't set up a new BookTube channel. Although the guy who made the video, was very fair and even-handed and made some valid points, and also pointed out every step of the way, hey, don't do anything you don't want to do. This is supposed to be fun. BookTube is supposed to be fun. And as Rekindled Reader points out too, if you're trying to make money off YouTube, there's better ways to do it than in a low-earning niche like BookTube, because there's not a lot of money to be made on BookTube. There's just not. I mean, I used to own a bookstore. I know how much money there is in the book business. And, unless you're exceptional in a lot of different ways, there's just a lot of easier ways to make a lot of money. So, but he made some points that I wanted to address here in a response video. He had mentioned, and like I say, he mentioned both sides of each issue, but I did take some notes here. Rekindled Reader, the first thing that he pointed out was that there is a culture on BookTube that's a little bit consumerist, that everybody's got a shelf full of books behind them. Everybody makes a lot of videos about their book hauls. And there's a feeling that if you can't afford to have book hauls coming in, and if you can't afford to have a nice set of books behind you, you don't really belong on BookTube. I think there's something valid about that, although I don't know that it's necessarily a negative. I don't feel it is a negative. I mean, people of a certain age are going to be involved in a consumerist culture. I mean, hell, we live in the United States of America. And I'd much rather see people spending their money on books that they're going to read than, on, a lot of other lame stuff. There's nothing wrong with loving books to the point where you want to spend some money on them. But my experience so far on BookTube has been that there's a certain amount of discouragement from that type of consumerist culture. In my little corner of BookTube, I see a lot of people participating in what they call a read what you own challenge. And basically the idea is that you pick an arbitrary number, and it might be 5 books, 10 books, 25 books, 100 books, I don't know, that you're going to read that you already own before you buy any more books. And I think anyone that's interested enough in books and reading to have a BookTube channel probably has a certain number of unread books on their shelves that they should read before they buy new books. But I've seen booktubers who get almost all their books free, one way or the other. They'll check out books from the library. They'll pick up books that have been donated to the little free libraries in the neighborhood. I know people who are interested in used paperbacks, and they get most of their books at the used bookstore. I've known a lot of people who are very generous with books that they've already read. Another video that I'm planning to do tonight is to show off a mail book haul that I got that I didn't pay anything for. There are just as many unhaul book videos in BookTube, as I've noticed, as there are book haul videos. And this one particular commenter who likes my channel and kind of has a feel for what my taste of books are, sent me her unhaul. So her unhaul became my book haul, which I don't think is a bad ecosystem economically at all. But I personally have not felt pressured to buy books to maintain my BookTube channel. And, I think it's possible that people do, but, at some point you also assume that there's a certain number of people who maybe we should have outgrown some of this peer pressure by now. And Rekindled Reader does point out, hey, you know what? You don't have to be able to spend a lot of money on books and book hauls to have a BookTube channel. And he's absolutely right about this. But I feel like the amount of pressure that that he's intimating is there to spend money on books might be a little bit exaggerated there. But I mean, if you're going to make a video with a clickbait title like The Dark Side of BookTube, well, you're going to have to come up with some pros and cons there. You're just going to have to, and that's an easy one to pick on because there are a certain number of people who that it really is important to. So that was the first point that he made in his video, and that's what I wanted to say about it personally. The second thing that he mentioned was that the hobby is very time consuming. You have to, according to him, set everything up so that you can make your videos. Make your thumbnails, get ready to edit your video when it's done, decide what you're going to say during the video. And there's a certain amount of that is definitely a part of BookTube. But it doesn't have to be that time consuming. But one of the implications was that if you spend a lot of time on BookTube, making your BookTube video channels, that you might have less time to read. And I take issue with that. You've got as much time to read as you want to have to read. You don't have to sacrifice time reading to make videos about what you're reading. I'm living proof. When I first started BookTube, I was a perfectionist. And so I was just a commenter because I knew I could comment on videos and not screw anything up. But actually making a video, I did feel a certain amount of pressure to do things perfectly. But eventually I realized, it was more important actually getting something done than doing it perfectly. And so I just started turning on my camera, recording and talking about what I'd been reading. And it turns out I've become reasonably popular among my circle of friends here on BookTube. And, one of the most notorious and infamous BookTube channels I know of is Steve Donahue's channel. And like me, he just basically turns on the camera and starts talking. He doesn't do any editing before or after. Basically, what you see when you watch one of my videos is about the amount of time that I spent on that video. I might spend 5 minutes making a quick thumbnail for the video, and I might spend a little bit of time writing a title tag and a description for the video. But yeah, I don't spend a lot of time on it. Now, I do have friends who are involved in BookTube, and they are trying to make money from it, and I don't begrudge them that at all, who work from a script. So that means they have to write a script. But they've told me that there's no way that they could do what I do, is just sit here and talk about books without looking at any notes or scripts or anything. And I can't imagine doing what they do. I can't imagine working from a script. It's almost impossible for me to imagine. Forgive me, I've been sick and I get dehydrated real easily, so I'm going to take a sip of water. Before I get to this third point here, which was an interesting point, pressure and expectations. Okay, so this is my opinion. You don't need to feel any pressure or expectations that you don't want to feel on BookTube. You might feel like there's a certain amount of pressure to read as many books as this other guy every month. Maybe you read 8 books a month comfortably. Maybe you read 4 books a month comfortably. But then you run into somebody who reads 16 books a month comfortably. There's always going to be somebody who's going to be able to read more books than you. There's always going to be somebody who's reading fewer books than you are. And you don't have a lot of control over it. A lot of it has to do with the size of the book, too. If all the books that I read are under 200 pages and you're working on 400 and 500 page novels, chances are if we read at the same speed, I'm going to read more books than you because the books that I'm reading are just smaller. But I don't know anybody on BookTube who has an expectation of you that you read a certain amount. How much you read is your business, man. I don't care. I don't care how much you read. I don't care how much I read in comparison to you. Yeah, maybe I'm a little bit curious here or there. I know some people who read freakish numbers of books per month because they don't need as much sleep as I do necessarily. They're speed readers and they read twice as fast as I do. And that's all they do is read. They don't have other hobbies and commitments like I do. But I don't feel bad because I'm not reading as many books as they are. And anytime I feel any kind of pressure or expectation in that direction, it's almost always a positive. I read more books now than I ever did before I became involved in the BookTube community. Last year was my first year that I was involved in the BookTube community. And I was only involved in it for part of the year. But I still read 71 books last year, which was a lot for me. I generally average about 50 books a year, sometimes 25 to 50 books a year. So 70 in a year was a lot, but I'm going to exceed that significantly this month. No big deal, doesn't mean anything, you know. I'm glad I'm getting more books read. That's a cool thing, but I don't feel pressure like, oh God, I've got to go read, you know. But he also mentioned that people felt pressure and expectations in terms of reading certain books that authors might have sent them to read, or publishers might have sent them in the hopes of getting a review. And then also pressure and expectations in terms of what kind of opinions that they should have about these books. And, you know, at the end of the day, you've got to decide how authentic you want to be about such things. You know, how much does it matter to you that someone approves of your opinion of a book or what you do or don't like to read? You know, I would say that if you're an adult, you know, this might be something to look at. If you're overly concerned about pressure and expectations about what your opinions are and whether or not they're correct, you know, then you've got something to think about here. And you might have some work that needs to be done, you know, in here and in here. So that's what I've got to say about pressure and expectations. Is you really shouldn't feel any pressure and expectations. And that's his advice in the video too, is that you really should go your own way, do your own thing. And he's absolutely right about this. But I also feel like the amount of pressure and the amount of expectation, again, just might have been exaggerated a little bit, just like the other points have been exaggerated quite a bit. You know, there is such a thing as positive pressure. You know, reading more books for most people is a good thing. You know, eliminating activities that are meaningless or that you need to do less of anyway, that's a good thing to do too. So, you know, one of his points too was the difference between making online friends and friends in real life, and how it's a little bit heartbreaking when you make virtual friends that you never really get to see in person. I'm going to share a story. I've been in the hospital 6 times this year. Okay, 3 times in February and March, and then 3 times more recently, which is why I haven't posted many videos in a while, but I think I've posted enough that people know about my health situation and stuff. Good news is I'm in remission from my cancer, and it looks like I'm getting my strength back and my energy back gradually. And so I'm going to be making more videos, I hope. I think I've rounded a corner. I could have made videos last week, but I wanted to wait until I felt confident that I was going to be here to make videos. But, you know, I'm pretty open about who I am, where I live, what's going on with me. And so when I was in the hospital earlier this year, I was about to lie down for an afternoon nap, and I noticed there was a man speaking with my nurse. And he obviously wasn't a doctor because he wasn't wearing a lab coat, and he wasn't part of the medical staff because he wasn't wearing scrubs. He was just dressed in street clothes. Did not know who he was. Turned out it was one of the people who watch my videos, comment on my videos, does not have a channel of his own, does not make videos, who knew who I was and where I lived from the information I've revealed on my videos, who had gone out and bought me a book and brought it to me as a gift in the hospital because he knew I wasn't feeling well. That's a remarkable experience in this day and age. It really is. And, you know, we've become friends. I'm not well enough to get out and about a whole lot yet, but we have plans to go out and have coffee and hang out at our favorite local bookstore soon when I am feeling well enough to get out without the use of a walker and stuff. And that's been a really special experience for me. Don't feel like there's a dark side to that at all. He did mention that there was a dark side to figuring out which social media channels you should focus on, because BookTube isn't the only social media channel where people talk about books. There's also Book Talk. I don't know that there's Book on Facebook, but if there's not, there certainly should be, shouldn't there? And he talked about how, you know, choose which one of the platforms is going to be better for you or more effective for you, which audience you're going to reach faster. You know, unless you're concerned about making money, I don't know that that's a big concern for most people on BookTube. I don't know that most people give that a second thought. I like BookTube's platform. I like longer videos. Book Talk to me seems utterly boring. I don't make short videos here on my BookTube channel. You know, I tend to shoot for 10, 15-minute videos, and that's plenty for me. I think it's probably plenty for my audience. Listening to me talk for 10 or 15 minutes is a lot. But I don't consider that a dark side of BookTube either. I think y'all wouldn't stay tuned if you didn't like what I was saying, or if it wasn't something interesting. So, and then the fifth thing that he mentioned was was a sense of being overwhelmed. Being overwhelmed by which videos should I make, which subjects should I cover, which books am I going to read, how many am I going to read. It's kind of a return to the kind of peer pressure stuff that he mentioned earlier in his Dark Side of BookTube. But my contention is that these are things that are probably going to help you grow. If you're overwhelmed by what kind of videos to make, this is an opportunity to learn how to handle that kind of commitment. I've learned how to schedule things. I've learned how to make lists of ideas and brainstorm ideas. I've learned how to look at what other people are doing and see what might work for me and what won't work for me. And I've grown as a person in ways that I hadn't expected. And I certainly don't see that as a dark side at all. So, I respect and admire, Rekindled reader. I haven't watched a lot of his videos, but I mean, he's a nice guy, and I don't think he's doing anything wrong over with this video. But I did want to make a response video because I've seen several of these videos with titles that are very similar to quote unquote the dark side of BookTube. And I think they're over-exaggerating the dark side of BookTube. I think if you want to make a BookTube channel, just come on and have fun, baby. It's been one of the best experiences of my life. My daughter told me, and I thought she was kind of teasing me for being an old man, but my daughter told me one day, she said, I'm really glad you found something to do with your time now that, we're grown up and moved away and stuff. Like I said, at first I thought she was teasing. She was serious. She really loves it that I've gotten so involved in BookTube and the BookTube community. And, I'm real excited about it and enjoy it too. And I really enjoy the new friends that I've made. I've got new friends all over the world. And we talk all day long on places like Voxer. I have phone numbers and emails for people, and I'm in touch with them off and on throughout the day. And it's just been the most wonderful experience. I could not encourage you more to give it a try. If you don't like it, you don't have to keep doing it. It's certainly an optional thing, but I think people will like it a lot more than they would think after watching a few of these dark side of BookTube videos that I see popping up here and there. So anyway, that's just a response video to Rekindled readers' recent dark side of BookTube. I'm calling my video the light side of YouTube or the bright side of YouTube because I think it's definitely brighter than it is dark. And I appreciate the idea for a video that Steve Donahue gave me because, he's one of my friends. I feel like I've known Steve all my life now, even though I've only known him for a couple of years through BookTube. He's just, a soulmate from the other coast. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't trade my friendship with him for anything in the world, nor would I trade my friendship with so many other friends I've made on BookTube. So it's just been a wonderful experience, and I'm so glad that I'm still here and still able to participate in it. Some of you will know this is not a joke. I always finish my videos with the same way. I encourage people to stay hydrated. One of the reasons that I was hospitalized the last 3 times was severe dehydration. So it is real important to stay hydrated. But it's also really important to stay sexy, folks. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.